welcome back to Mondays with Mom, the podcast where my mom, Leah,
Hi.
and I, Jo, dive into her stories, experiences, and the lessons she's hoping I finally take to heart. My mom has always dreamed of turning her life into a book or a movie, and this podcast is our way of making that dream come true, one episode at a time. Right, Mom?
Right, Joey, and thanks for that.
So what's the story this week, Mom?
Well, Joe, I'm not sure if you're going to like this one because you feature heavily in this story.
That's not a good sign.
That's never a good sign, but let me tell you where it all started. Now, I don't mean how you became. I'm not going to go into the birds and the bees story. No.
Thank goodness.
This is a PG podcast. What I was actually wanting to say is very recently, my friend Avril, shout out to Avril, sent me a little video of her grandson, Matteo. It is the cutest video ever. I saw him and met him for the first time when I went to South Africa in February this year. And since then, I've been harassing my friend for some pictures. And eventually, she sent me some pictures and some videos. And he is really, really cute.
He is super cute.
He really is. He's currently must be just over 7 months old. And I saw in the little video, which was really cute because he was squealing and carrying on. And he was lying on a little baby mat and trying to suck the end of the baby mat, and literally anything he could find around him, he was just putting in his mouth. And Avril sent me a little caption under that said, "Oh my word, you would think we don't even feed the little guy." And what I said to her is, I said, "No, Avril, that is completely normal behavior for a child that age. If he wasn't doing that, he would be Joe."
I don't know what you're talking about.
So this is where the story begins about Joe. Just to give our listeners a little bit of background, young babies and children put things in their mouths. It begins at approximately 3 to 4 months of age, and it is, and I'm going to emphasize this a little bit, it's a very normal activity. You'll hear later on why I'm emphasizing the normal, but it's really, really normal for children to do, and it probably ends when they're about 2 years old. And it is really, really important. It's important because children use this stage to explore, to learn about the world, and to build very, very critical brain connections. The thing about this is that children at that age have more nerve endings and learn more about objects when they put them in their mouths than when they hold them in their hands.
Interesting.
Very interesting, as we will soon find out. And another thing that this putting everything in the mouth does for children is it prepares them for speech, and it also prepares them for beginning to chew solid food. So, Avril, if you're out there listening, now's your chance to roll your eyes and listen to the rest of the story. The other thing that this stage does, sorry, Joe, is it teaches children to self-soothe themselves, which also helps them to be able to fall asleep by themselves at night, not to drive their parents insane, like some people I know.
You know, some would consider this slander. Like, I could take you to court for this. This is evil.
I think it only counts as slander if it's not factual. I think if it's based on solid fact, it can't be considered slander.
Well, it's your word against mine.
Okay, I'll take that one. And going back to our background, when children begin going through this phase, what parents have to do is be super careful. You cannot leave things lying around, little things on the floor. You can't leave things like buttons, like beads, like those
Marbles,
those tiny little magnets. Generally, anything that you are concerned that you don't really want to go into your child's mouth should not be left lying around on the floor. Now, just to put it out there, I never had that problem. I could leave anything I wanted, wherever I wanted. I could leave little beads, I could leave little balls, I could leave batteries, I could leave anything lying around because Joe, unlike other children, was blessed with a condition that meant she was orally defensive. Now, that sounds like a bit of a major medical term. All it boils down to is that children who have all these nerve endings in their mouths and they learn about the world like that, Jo's nerve endings happen to be hypersensitive. And so Jo could put nothing in her mouth. Very, very handy when you want to leave things lying around. But as for the rest of the stuff, the self-soothing, the speech development, the learning about the world, we kind of had one or two minor issues with that, and including eating food and preparing to eat solid food.
I don't even know what to say.
Don't say anything, I'll take it from here. Now to give you some other background, and then I'm going to start using Jo background. So normal children, when they're born, in terms of their length, tend to be, in centimeters, between 47 and 53 centimeters. 47 is considered slightly on the small side. 53 centimeters is considered slightly on the big side. For all my American listeners, I've done the conversion for you and I've written down the inches.
You're so prepared.
Always. So a normal infant, when they're born, tend to be between 18.5 and 21 inches. So I'm going to give you guys Jo's birth length. In inches, Jo was 22.8 inches. That comes out to 58 centimeters.
I was a tall baby.
You were really, really tall or really, really long. And at birth, you were the size of a normal 2 to 3 month old baby. And I am using the word normal loosely here. So when you have a child and they measure your child at birth, they always compare it according to World Health Organization percentiles. So they take other children at birth and at various stages of your child's development and compare your child's height and weight to other children of the same age and of the same gender. And Jo, I'm not going to put your weight out there. No woman should have that done to them.
Thank you. At least you're doing that much.
Exactly. But her height was above the 95th percentile. Now, because Jo put nothing in her mouth because she was orally defensive,
I prefer picky.
picky too, this meant that even feeding Jo was difficult. And I mentioned earlier, the soothing part was difficult, which meant it was quite difficult for Jo to be able to fall asleep on her own. My sister, shout out to Cleo, who had had a child 2 months earlier, Jo's cousin was born 2 months before her, came to me with all her advice and said, I know how you're going to get this child to sleep. Firstly, she said, you need a dummy, as they call in South Africa, or a pacifier, as the rest of the world calls it. And she said to me, try it out, which I did, and I must admit I was completely unsuccessful. I tried it repeatedly. I couldn't get it right. This child would be gagging and crying, and this pacifier was doing anything but pacifying. It was causing extreme trouble. When I mentioned this to my sister, she came and said, oh, please, you're just a new mother. I know more than you. I'm going to come show you how it's done. And she came over and decided she's going to do it. And every time Jo spat this pacifier out, she would shove it in. And she thought she was doing really well. This was like a battle of the wills until Jo decided she actually needs to show who's boss. And she decided the next time someone shoves this in my face, I'm going to do what I was born to do.
What was I born to do?
Throw up. And Jo did this really, really well. She got really, really good at it, but I don't think I got really, really good at cleaning. And eventually we got to a point where I knew my only choice when Jo was throwing up, because it wasn't going to come off the carpet. I was cleaning this carpet as much as I could, and I could see these dark stains wherever Jo had thrown up.
That's awful.
It's awful,
Sorry.
but then I came up with a plan. I'm very, very resourceful. So what I would do is, as Jo would begin to gag, I would position her somewhere where she hadn't thrown up before, and we'd create like a pattern. But eventually...
You're a regular interior designer.
Exactly. It eventually looked like some kind of animal print pattern. You know, people would have walked in and thought, gee, this carpet looks really, really good, because I had all these marks all over the place that I just couldn't clean. And at the same time, Jo hadn't learnt this self-soothing that children learn by putting things in their mouths, And so putting Jo to sleep or getting Jo to fall asleep was really, really difficult. We tried controlled crying, and I'm not sure who cried more. It was probably me. I think the one time I let Jo cry, my limit must have been about half an hour. And then I think I cried for about 3.5 hours after that. So controlled crying, there was crying, but I don't think anyone was under control. So that didn't really work for us. And so to get Jo to fall asleep at night, and I'm not exaggerating here, Jo slept for the first time at 7. And I'm not talking about 7 months, 7 years. She was 7 years old before she slept through the night.
I was just a night owl.
You were a night owl. I think you still are. Sometimes people would see me in the street and I probably looked a bit haggard. My eyes were swollen. I had black rings under my eyes. I was probably not able to concentrate. And people would say to me, "Shame, Leah, you look a little bit tired." At which point it would be very hard for me not to snap back and say, the last time I slept was July 97. And people would look at me in absolute horror. But be that as it may, I really loved this child. I still love this child.
Thank goodness.
And the more important thing to me was not whether I get enough sleep, although it was very important and I didn't get any sleep. More importantly, I wanted this child to survive. And yes, I am a paranoid, overprotective Greek mom, and at the time, first-time mother as well. So I was ever so slightly over the top. So I would do little things like when Jo was being breastfed, and I needed to know that she was getting enough milk. Breastfeeding, for some reason, wasn't an issue for her. Everything else was. But when I was trying to check if she was getting enough milk, what I would do is weigh the child before I fed her, feed her, and weigh her again. And so I had this whole really intensive technique going on, and we were doing it, okay, we were managing. And then the dreaded time came where we needed to begin solid foods. And again, I use the word solid very loosely. I started off the way they start off with rice pudding and hypoallergenic foods, and I blended them into oblivion. And when I couldn't blend them into oblivion, I went out in those days and would buy little jars of purity baby food and would feed Jo that. And somehow, even in this purity jar, or me blending the way no one has ever blended before, Jo would somehow find something that didn't feel 100% blended to her. And the minute that something, which was non-existent, touched the inside of her mouth, she did what she did best. She would just throw up. She would be throwing up all over the place, which it's okay. My carpet looked really good. My pattern was going really well. But the problem was Jo's weight. And I remember going to the pediatrician, and I was all excited because when Jo was born, as I said, her height was 95th percentile and her weight was a very normal percentile, I think 75th percentile. And as I started taking her for pediatrician visits, the height remained at 95th percentile, but the weight was dropping to 50th, 40th, 30th, 25th, and we were now below the 20th percentile for weight. And I was getting really, really worried. The pediatrician kept trying to calm me down and tell me that, look, Leah, children generally use excess energy to grow. They take what they need and then they use the excess to grow. So children that are not getting any nutrition won't actually be able to maintain their height that high. And all I can say is Jo is a scientific feat of nature because somehow she maintained it, but she wasn't eating. And I wasn't sleeping and the child wasn't eating. And sometimes I mismatched the pattern in the carpet. Things were not looking good. And so I called a hotline. In South Africa, around about the time that Jo was born, which was 1998, there was a midwife who was really, really well known and really educated in all issues around pregnancy, birth, parenting, early parenting. She wrote a book. She had a radio show. And she also had this hotline. Her name was, or she just went by, Sister Lillian. And I think Sister Lillian's hotline and I became best friends. I would be calling this hotline repeatedly, and I think half the time they didn't believe what I was saying. So they would give me ideas and they would say, okay, try and feed this child pasta. Maybe children sometimes like it because the texture's not that bad. And I would get back to them and say, I tried. And they say, well, how would it go? And I'd say, does one macaroni count as pasta? One macaroni. And if I try to extend it to 1.5 pieces of macaroni, then I was making patterns on the carpet again. And Sister Lillian and I were trying to work out how we would get some protein into this child. And I would be calling, and my question was always the same, or my plea for help. They would say, hi, how can we help you? And I'd say, please, I need you to give me some advice so that my child can survive till tomorrow. And they would think I was completely insane, but after the 100th phone call, they got used to me.
So they probably knew you like on a first name basis.
I think, Jo, they knew a lot more about me than just my first name. They had so much information on me because I'm sure I revealed all sorts of secrets in like this sleepless stupor of worry that I was living in.
So like you were basically a single mom dealing with a sleepless child and a child who also wouldn't eat. That's a lot. I put you through a lot.
You really did. And I'm putting it out there that I'm still very grateful to Sister Lillian. Apparently, the clinic still functions. I'm not sure if she runs it herself anymore, if she's got people running it for her, but she literally saved my life and definitely saved Jo's life. And that's why we're both here to tell the tale.
Yeah, so shout out. Thanks, Sister Lillian.
Yes, Jo, you owe her your life. And I'm not even going to get into what you owe me. That's a very, very long list. We're not going to get into it on the podcast. So I'm just putting it out there that all the various foods I would try and feed you, I tried everything. I tried what people said, give babies bland food, add a little bit of flavor. I tried everything. And when I went out to go buy Purity baby food, which had the different stages, we never ever got to stage 3 ever. I don't even know what stage 3 looked like. But by the time I was trying desperately to move off stage 1, which were these tiny little jars, and get onto stage 2, they had started bringing out these really exciting flavors. And there's one particular flavor that I know haunts me and my friend Avril. And this one was called Fruity Custard Delight.
Let me guess, I didn't like it either.
You really didn't. And to me, that sounds really, really appealing as far as baby flavors go.
I don't know, it's not that appealing.
Anything that ends in delight should be good.
They're trying to hide something with that delight, you know.
I don't think at the time you knew what delight meant. But because I was working and I now still needed this child to eat, and it was really, really difficult, and I was working as a pediatric physiotherapist. And one of the children I was seeing was my friend Avril's daughter, Chanel. We're not going to dedicate this episode to Chanel because she's going to have at least 5 podcast episodes just on Chanel.
Sorry, Chanel.
Sorry, Chanel, your time is coming. But I'm focusing on my friend Avril, who I thought, because I was really, really battling to feed Jo, and Chanel is a couple of years older than Jo, and I thought my friend Avril is a lot more experienced than what I am. And I said to Avril, let's do this. Let's use the old system, the bartering system. I will come to you and I will look after your child and do physio for your child. And all you have to do is feed Jo this wonderful jar of Fruity Custard Delight.
Sounds simple.
Sounds simple. Avril thought this was a fantastic idea. She thought she would be scoring until she tried to feed Jo. And at this point, the time that Avril was trying to feed Jo, Jo could walk. In fact, Jo did something that resembled running. And poor Avril was chasing this child around with a spoon. And when she would finally give her some of this delightful mixture, Jo would pretend to gag. I mean, we did this outside because I wasn't going to stay in Avril's carpet. I knew that the friendship would end there and then. And so I decided we were going to do it outside. We would go to the park and do this. And after literally about 4 minutes of chasing this child around with a spoon, Avril came to me and she said, you know what? Whatever the physio costs, I'll pay. I am not feeding this child. I cannot feed this child. And the story carried on. Even though Avril was not feeding the child, I was running around. So I wasn't sleeping. I was a single parent and I was chasing this child around trying to feed her. And eventually, and I'm putting this out there just in case anyone, I don't believe there is such a person that's going through what I went through, but you never know. I'm putting this out there that I figured out how to pin her down. I decided to feed Jo when she was in the bath.
When I was trapped.
She was trapped and she couldn't run. And I thought, who cares? We're surrounded by water. I don't care where food goes. Often Jo was bathing in food at the time. And I thought it doesn't matter. Anything I can get this child to eat, I'll get her to eat. And to cut a long story short, this went on for years. It went past Tina's birth. It just carried on and on and on. And I got to a point where I had met George and I was now getting to know him and wanting to impress him and look after his children. And I remember the one night my stepdaughter Aliki came to spend the night. And I did what I usually did. Poor Tina was used to this. She knew she could have her regular meals at other times, and she would have whatever Jo was eating at bath time. So I managed to pin Jo down. I had her down in one spot, but that didn't mean she was going to eat. So I needed a whole distraction technique. So the whole eating experience had to be exciting, and there was no fruity custard delight to make it exciting. I became the excitement. I would be reading stories, blowing bubbles. We had every single bath toy known to man. We had those little, what were they, Jo? Those beans that would dissolve in the water and sponges would come out that were shaped as animals. Stop laughing.
Those were fun. I'm just reminiscing.
I'm glad you were having fun. We had the alphabet up on the wall. I would be playing movies and singing songs. You cannot imagine what would go on at bath time.
It was an experience.
Jo and Tina were having a ball. Aliki thought she had left her normal household and arrived in Disney Bathland. It was such fun. And then in between, what I would do, because I now had 3 children in the bath, I had Tina, Jo, and Aliki, I would have separate little bowls for them, and I would give each one a spoon at a time. I would feed one, which would give Jo enough time to digest and to contemplate whether she would be eating the next spoonful or not. And because it was Jo, despite the fact that Aliki was visiting, our food was really, really well blended. Any protein I could get was hidden. It was dissolved. It was nowhere to be found. And Aliki tasted this and said to me, wow. She said, I really, really love this. She actually wanted to keep coming over for bath time, and she thought this food was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. And I was frazzled, and she said, Leah, what is this food called? And I looked at this nondescript mass of blended stuff in front of me, and the first thing that came to my mind was mush. I said, Aliki, this is mush. And she said, wow, that's delicious. And I thought, okay, well, listen, I'm still going to impress my new husband, so this is going well. Until she went back to her mother. And when her mother was trying to feed her the regular dinner that normal children would eat, she complained and said, no, Mom, I don't want this. And the mom said, what would you like, Aliki? And she said, I need mush.
Well, Mom, you're a good mushy chef.
Thanks, Jo. I'll put that on my CV and just see if there's any restaurants in the area that might want to hire me.
You can go on guys' grocery games and beat them all.
Thank you, Jo. What I can actually do, if there's anyone out there, and Avril, I'm extending this to you as well, who's now dealing with a young child, and if the child is difficult and doesn't eat, I am no Sister Lillian. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I know I can suggest things that no one at Sister Lillian has ever heard of. Some amazing way out things that only work for very, very specific purposes. Anyone out there that would like, I think I might just patent the mush recipe and put it out there. Maybe, Jo, we can approach Purity and ask them to make it as a baby food number 2.
Mondays with Mom mush.
Mondays with Mom mushy custard delight.
No, that sounds awful.
Okay, let's take out the custard.
Yeah, take out the custard. Just mushy delight.
Mushy delight.
Oh, golly. And on that note, Mom, what are some of the lessons that we can take away from this story?
Well, Jo, firstly, I would say to all the new parents out there, don't despair. Children are a lot more resilient than what you think. There is definitely no one-size parenting solution that fits all children, so don't worry about that. Another important lesson, which I think is a bit of a universal one, that if life gives you lemons, you're going to make lemonade, and if life gives you Joe, go and make mush.
I like those lessons.
Lastly, I would say a really good lesson to know there is if you pick up that your child is orally defensive, skip the pacifier.
It ain't gonna work.
It ain't going to work unless you've got a carpet that needs redecorating.
And what are we grateful for, Mom?
Well, I'm really grateful to Sister Lillian for putting up with all my nonsense and for giving me some really good ideas that have obviously worked because you're here to tell the tale.
And I'm grateful that I'm able to tell the tale.
Me too. I'm really grateful to Avril because even though she didn't get this particular one right, she really has come to my rescue on many occasions. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And lastly, I'm really grateful to Aliki for endorsing my secret
Exclusive
recipe for mush because there's no one better to endorse this than a child.
Your mush is kid tested.
And more importantly, kid approved.
I think that's a good spot to end the episode, Mom.
I think so too. Thanks, guys, for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, it's been fun. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform that you listen to your podcasts on. And follow us on Facebook and on Instagram to keep up to date with any of our news and episodes and fun throwbacks that we post.
Thanks to all our international audience. We really, really appreciate you. And we are loving seeing new people that are enjoying the podcast.
And we also love hearing from you guys as well. And make sure to tune in next week for our next episode.
Bye.